I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife Emily for about 5 years now. We got engaged a few months ago, and everything seemed perfect, or at least close to it. She's beautiful, smart, confident, the kind of woman everyone notices. I always thought we had a solid connection, even if we argued sometimes like any couple. Things started feeling a little off in the last few weeks, though. She'd go out with the girls more often, saying it was just a girls' night, but her texts got more secretive. She'd get defensive if I tried to look at her phone, and whenever I asked about her whereabouts, she'd brush me off, saying I was overthinking or being paranoid. She'd make jokes about my jealousy, calling me clingy or insecure. Honestly, I don't know what I was supposed to think. Women don't usually get that defensive unless they're hiding something, right? Then came the night she left town unexpectedly. No explanation, no note, just a quick "I need some space," and she was gone. The house felt colder without her around, and I was honestly confused and hurt. That's when I started snooping. I wasn't proud of it, but I felt like I had no choice. I was desperate to understand what was going on. I knew she was lying about something. I just didn't know how bad it was until I found it. I decided to check her emails and messages on her laptop when she went out with her friends that night. I had a gut feeling. I told myself I'd only look briefly, just to confirm my suspicions. What I found shook me to my core. There were messages between her and Mark, her best friend's husband. It was clear they'd been talking intimately for quite some time. The messages were full of flirtation, secret plans, and even talk about meeting up. I couldn't believe my eyes. My wife, the woman I was supposed to marry, was cheating on me with her best friend's husband. The words burned into my brain. They had sex more than once, apparently. Reading through her messages made me feel sick. It was like being punched in the stomach repeatedly. She lied to my face for months about everything. She said she loved me, that she was excited for our wedding, that she wanted a future with me. Meanwhile, she was sneaking around, getting her kicks with Mark. I couldn't understand how she could be so callous, so willing to betray the person who trusted her the most, me. And the worst part, I knew it wasn't just some fling, this was serious. They planned to meet again, and she kept saying she'd never leave me, but her actions told a different story. I sat there for a long time, staring at her messages, trying to process what I just discovered. I felt rage, betrayal, despair, and a deep sense of stupidity for not seeing it sooner. How could I have missed all the signs? Was everything just a lie? I'd always thought Emily was the girl of my dreams, but now I saw her for what she truly was. A liar, a cheat, a bitch who was willing to ruin everything for some quick sex with a married man. I clenched my fists, realizing I had to confront her, but I also knew I needed time to think. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her messages, her words, her lies. I wondered how someone I loved could do this to me, to us. I felt like my entire world was crashing down around me. I started questioning everything I believed about her, about our relationship, about love itself. Was she just pretending all this time? Did she ever really love me? Or was I just a backup plan while she secretly got her thrills elsewhere? It was a hard pill to swallow, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not without a fight. After I finished reading those messages, my mind was racing. I was furious, but at the same time I felt numb. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or just break something. Instead, I sat there in the dark, staring at her open chat window on the laptop, feeling like a complete idiot for trusting Emily so blindly. I kept thinking about all the times she told me she was exhausted from work, or that she needed me time, and I bought every excuse. Turns out, she had all this going on behind my back, sneaking around, exchanging sex messages with Mark, planning secret meetups. That bastard. I couldn't believe how much of a snake he was and how willing Emily was to throw everything away just for some cheap thrill with him. I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't just sit on this knowledge and pretend everything was okay. I waited until morning, figuring she'd be back from her trip by then. When she finally returned, her face was tired, like she'd been crying, and she was acting all fake cheerful, like she had no idea I knew everything. I didn't want to waste time beating around the bush. As soon as she sat down in front of me, I just threw the phone on the table and said, We need to talk. I know about you and Mark." Her face froze and her eyes widened for a split second before she tried to brush it off with a laugh. "What are you talking about, Mike? I have no idea what you're implying." Her voice was calm, but her eyes darted around nervously. I pressed her further, showing her the messages I'd found. Her fake smile cracked, and she looked at me like I'd just grown. A second ahead, she started to lie, of course, claiming I must have hacked her emails or that some of the messages were just friends joking around. She said she was just having fun and it didn't mean anything. She insisted she loved me, that I was overreacting, but I wasn't buying it. I told her how betrayed I felt, how I'd never suspected she was capable of this. She kept lying, saying it was a mistake, a moment of weakness, that Mark was just a bad influence, and that she'd never actually cheated, just flirted, kissed, but never crossed the line. Yeah, right. That's when I saw her true colors. She was bitchy, defensive, and angry that I dared to accuse her. She kept saying I was being paranoid, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But I knew better. There was no way I was just going to let her brush this under the rug. The confrontation got heated fast. She called me possessive, jealous, and said I was just insecure because I was afraid of losing her. That stung. I told her I wasn't perfect, but I didn't deserve to be lied to and cheated on. I asked her why she did it, why she would risk everything for sex with Mark, who was supposed to be my friend's husband. She shrugged, acting like it was no big deal, saying she was bored, she needed spice in her life, and Mark was better in bed than me. That hurt more than anything, hearing her say that about us. I felt my chest tight, heartbreak mixing with rage. I told her she was a selfish bitch who threw away years of love for a quick fuck. I said I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. I told her she was a liar and a fraud and that I was done. I told her she'd lost me forever. She looked at me with that same bitchy smirk, still denying everything, but I saw the cracks in her facade. Deep down, I knew she was caught. That night after she stormed out, I was left alone with my thoughts. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to forget everything and move on. But deep inside, I knew I couldn't. The betrayal cut too deep. It wasn't just about the sex or the lies, it was about the fact that she'd betrayed my trust, my love, everything I thought we had. I felt crushed, broken. I kept asking myself, how could she do this to me? How could she lie so easily? And what do I do now? That night was a turning point. I knew I couldn't keep pretending things were okay. The shock, the anger, the sadness, all of it was flooding over me at once. I realized I'd have to make a choice, and whatever I chose, my world had changed forever. I just didn't know how hard the road ahead would be. The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything: work, friends, even basic daily routines felt like they were happening in slow motion. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those messages, her smirk when she lied, her tone when she was trying to dismiss what I knew. It was like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Honestly, I kept questioning myself. Did I miss signs? Was I just blind? How manipulative she could be. Or was I just so in love that I refused to see the truth? I kept replaying everything she told me during the confrontation. Her words about needing spice, her dismissive attitude, her bitchy comments about my possessiveness. I thought about the times she'd be secretive or defensive about her phone. All of it suddenly made sense in a sick way. I realized I had been played, manipulated into thinking everything was fine, when really she was already planning her escape. I decided I needed to know more. I wanted to understand how deep this went. So I started digging through her phone, her social media, her texts, whatever I could find. I wanted full clarity. That's when I discovered something worse. There were messages from Mark, yes, but also from Emily's best friend, Lisa. I found a whole string of conversations where Emily was openly talking about her plans to leave, to run away with Mark once the wedding was over. They'd made secret codes, talked about needing a fresh start, and even joked about how perfect their sex was. It was like tripping over a secret society of liars. What hit me hardest was a message she sent to Lisa that I found buried in a hidden folder. She was planning to leave town, just disappear without telling anyone. She was tired of the drama, she said, tired of the fake life. She was pretending to live with me. It was all laid out in her own words. She was actively planning to walk out and start fresh with Mark. Honestly, I felt like the ground shifted beneath my feet. How could she do this? How could she betray not only me but her best friend too? I was furious. Not just at her, but at Mark and Lisa as well. These people had conned me, lied to my face, and now I saw that Emily had been planning her exit for weeks. She had no intention of fixing anything, no hope of us working through it. She was just biding her time, waiting for the right moment, and I was left with nothing but a sinking feeling that I'd been completely played for a fool. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time, I wanted to do it with everything I had learned. I wasn't going to let her dismiss this as some mistake or a moment of weakness. No, I had the facts, I had proof, and I was prepared to make her face what she'd done. I also knew I had to decide what I was going to do about us. Part of me still loved her, but another part was disgusted and broken. The trust was shattered beyond repair, and I couldn't see how we could ever go back to what we once were. That evening, I waited until she was home. When she walked in, I looked her in the eyes and told her I knew everything. I laid out the evidence, the messages, the plans, her secret messages to Lisa about leaving. Her face went pale and her bitchy smirk was replaced with panic. She tried to lie again, but I cut her off. I told her I didn't want her explanations, didn't want to hear the bullshit. I told her I was done, that there was no coming back from this. I told her she had betrayed everything we built, and the only thing left to do was to end it. Her reaction was classic. Emily, she got defensive, started crying, pleaded with me not to do this, said she loved me, that she'd changed, that she was sorry. But that was all just words. I saw it for what it was, a last-ditch effort to manipulate her way out of it. I told her that sorry wouldn't fix what she broke and that I wasn't interested in her empty promises. I told her she was a bitch and a liar, and I wasn't going to be part of her game anymore. I packed a bag that night, not knowing exactly what I was going to do next, but certain that I couldn't stay. I thought about all the years we'd spent together, the plans we made, and how she'd thrown it all away for some cheap sex and lies. I felt numb, exhausted, like the worst thing in the world had happened to me. But underneath all that, a small voice kept telling me I deserved better than this. I deserved honesty, respect, and someone who actually loved me. Not someone who cheated behind my back, lied to my face, and planned to run away with her best friend's husband. I left that night, not knowing what the future held, but knowing I was finally free from her. And honestly, it felt like I was just beginning to heal, even if it was going to be a long, painful process. I realized I had to rebuild everything from scratch. Trust was gone, but I was still here, still standing. That's what mattered most now. The days after I walked out were among the hardest I've ever experienced. I stayed with a friend for a while, just trying to get some distance from the chaos, the betrayal, and the constant replaying of her lies in my head. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sneering, her trying to act innocent, her fake tears. It was like a punch to the gut every single time. I kept asking myself how I had missed all the signs, how I hadn't seen she was hiding something so big. Every moment felt heavy, like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. I remember sitting in that small apartment, staring at my phone, trying to block out the voice in my head that kept whispering, "You were so stupid too. Trust her?" Honestly, I'd never felt so betrayed, so humiliated. I'd poured so much into that relationship, built my future around her, and she was out there planning her escape with Mark, her best friend's husband. It felt like my entire life was crashing down in pieces. I kept thinking about the times she'd say she loved me, how she'd cry when I was upset, and then I'd find out she was just using me as a backup plan while she cheated behind my back. One thing I couldn't shake was the idea that she'd been lying to my face all this time. Every "I love you," every "I want a future with you," it all seemed so hollow now. I felt so angry, but underneath that there was this deep, aching sadness. I kept asking myself where I'd gone wrong. Was I not enough? Did I miss signs? Or was she just a manipulative bitch from the start? It's weird, but I kept replaying the good times, the moments I thought were real, trying to cling to some hope that maybe she was just confused or that I could fix this somehow. But deep down, I knew that was just denial. I needed answers. I decided I had to know how far her lies went, how deep she'd been planning her escape. So I started digging through everything I could find: her messages, her emails, social media. I wanted to understand her mindset, her motives. That's when I found her secret plan to leave town. She'd been talking with Lisa about it for weeks, using code words, making arrangements, talking about how she needed to get away from the drama and start fresh somewhere else. The more I read, the more I felt like I was unraveling a conspiracy. She wasn't just cheating, she was actively planning an exit without a word to me. The realization hit hard. She'd been planning to leave me all along. Not just cheat, but run away, cut me out completely. That's when I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. How could she do this? How could she so easily discard everything we had? I started to see her in a new light, a manipulative, selfish woman who had no remorse for what she was doing. She was willing to destroy her relationship with me just for some sex with Mark, and now she was planning to disappear like I was nothing. It also made me furious at Mark and Lisa. They all played their parts in this sick game. Mark, who was supposed to be my friend, and Lisa, Emily's best friend, how could they be so cold? I wondered if Lisa knew about everything, if she ever told Emily to stop, or if she was just as much a part of this betrayal. I felt so disgusted with all of them. It was like I was in some twisted movie I couldn't wake up from. I started to question everything I thought I knew about loyalty, friendship, and love. That night, I decided I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. I knew I had to confront Emily again, face her with everything I knew. I wanted her to see the damage she had done, to understand that I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. So I reached out and called her. When she answered, her voice was shaky, like she was expecting me to say something different. I told her I knew about her plans, about her and Mark, about Lisa's involvement. Her silence on the other end was deafening. Then she started to try and deny it again, but I cut her off. I told her I had all the proof, the messages, the plans, the secret emails. Her voice cracked, and suddenly she was the victim. She started crying, claiming she was sorry, that she didn't mean to hurt me, that she was just confused. It was all a bunch of bullshit. I could hear her trying to manipulate me, trying to make me feel guilty for catching her. But I wasn't falling for it. I told her she had lied, cheated, and used me, that she'd thrown away everything we built like it was nothing. I told her she was a bitch and that I didn't want her anymore. I wanted to end it for good. Listening to her try to worm her way out of it made me realize how much she didn't care about us, about me. She was only concerned with her own escape, her own happiness, even if it meant hurting everyone else. I knew then I had to let her go, even if it hurt like hell. I told her she'd lost me forever, and I hung up. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The truth was out. I knew what she was capable of, and I knew I had to start rebuilding from here somehow. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I was done being a victim. It was time to take control, even if it meant losing the person I thought was the love of my life. The days that followed that confrontation were a blur of confusion, anger, and a strange sense of relief. I felt like I'd finally uncovered the full extent of her betrayal, and honestly, a huge weight had lifted. No more pretending, no more lies. But at the same time, I was painfully aware of how much my world had been turned upside down. Every little thing reminded me of Emily's deception, her texts, the way she used to smile, her sudden disappearances. The trust I once had was gone, shattered into pieces I didn't know how to pick up. I started seeing a counselor after a few days. Not because I wanted to fix us, I knew that ship had sailed, but because I needed someone to help me process everything. I felt so angry, so betrayed, and yet there was also this quiet ache inside that I couldn't ignore. I kept questioning whether I should confront her again, whether I should try to salvage anything, or just cut my losses and move on. Every option felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I couldn't believe I had let her manipulate me for so long, and now I was left with nothing but a broken heart and a pile of unanswered questions. One thing I couldn't stop thinking about was the fact that she had been planning her escape for weeks, maybe even months. She'd been talking to Lisa and Mark about getting away, about starting over somewhere else, and I realized she'd been lying to me from the start. She pretended to be excited for the wedding, to be committed to me, but she was only pretending. All that time, she was secretly trying to sneak out of my life and into someone else's. That realization hit me like a punch in the stomach. I felt so stupid for not seeing it sooner. How could I have been so blind? I also started making arrangements for myself. I knew I couldn't stay in the house, not after everything. I reached out to some friends looking for a new place. I didn't want to be around that betrayal anymore. I wanted distance, clarity. I also reached out to a lawyer because I knew I needed to understand my options if I decided to divorce her. I wasn't interested in fighting over everything. I just wanted to get out of this mess with some dignity intact. The thought of her taking everything, of her running off with Mark and Lisa, made me sick, but I knew I had to look out for myself now. What surprised me most during all this was how quickly things spiraled. I expected to be angry and upset, but I didn't think I'd feel this hollow, this lost. I kept asking myself why I hadn't seen it all coming. Was I really that blind? And what kind of person could do this to someone they supposedly loved? I kept replaying the moments I thought were real, her "I love yous," her smiles, her promises. It all felt like a lie now. I realized I've been living in a fantasy, and that hurt more than anything. The worst part is I still care. Deep down, I want to hate her. I want to erase her from my mind, but I can't. There's a part of me that still remembers the good times, the love, the hopes we had. I know I'll have to let that go if I want to heal. I've read that sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself again, and I guess that's where I am now. Starting over, rebuilding my life without her. It's terrifying, but I know it's necessary. As I sit here writing this, I realize that I've learned something crucial. Never ignore the little signs. Trust is sacred, and once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. Emily's betrayal was a wake-up call, a brutal reminder that some people are just not worth your pain. I can't change what happened, but I can control what I do next. I'm going to focus on healing, on finding myself again, and on making sure I don't get fooled again. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Still hurt, still angry, but also somehow more aware of what I deserve. No more lies, no more fake love. Just honesty, respect, and someone who genuinely cares about me. And if I've learned anything from all this, it's that revenge isn't about hurting her back. It's about reclaiming my life and making sure I never get betrayed like this again. Looking back now, I realize that this whole experience changed me in ways I never expected. At first, I was just devastated, crushed by the realization that the woman I loved had been lying and cheating behind my back. But over time, that pain turned into something else, a fierce determination to rebuild my life, to heal from this betrayal and to become stronger. I learned that trust is a fragile thing, and once broken, it's almost impossible to fix. But I also learned that I am resilient, that I can pick myself up even after being knocked down hard. The most important lesson I've taken from all of this is that I deserve honesty and respect. No one should have to live in a web of lies and betrayal. Emily's actions showed me who she really was, and I realized I don't want that kind of person in my life anymore. I've cut ties with her completely, cleaned out the house, and started focusing solely on myself. I've been seeing a therapist to work through the anger and heartbreak, and I've been reconnecting with friends and family who truly care about me. I also found strength in facing the truth head-on. Instead of hiding from the pain, I let myself feel it fully. I cried, I yelled, I cursed her name, and then I let it go. I refused to carry this burden forever. I reminded myself that I am worth more than someone who would cheat and lie so cavalierly. I've learned to set boundaries, to trust my instincts, and to be cautious about who I allow into my life. Not everyone is worth your trust, and sometimes you have to learn that the hard way. As I move forward, I know I won't forget what happened, but I also know I won't let it define me. This was a chapter, a painful one, but a chapter nonetheless. I'm rebuilding from the ground up, choosing to focus on my own happiness and well-being. I'm not perfect, and I still get angry sometimes, but I've come to accept that healing takes time. I'm taking small steps each day, and slowly, I'm rediscovering who I am outside of all this pain. Most importantly, I want anyone reading this to know that betrayal hurts badly. But life goes on. There's always a chance to start over, to find someone who truly respects you, or even just to learn how strong you can be when everything falls apart. Don't let anyone make you feel less than you are. If you're in a similar situation, remember, you are worthy of honesty. You deserve someone who loves you for who you are, not someone who cheats and lies. And most of all, don't be afraid to walk away from what's hurting you. Sometimes, the only way to heal is to let go and move forward. That's what I've learned through all this mess. And honestly, I feel a little more hopeful now, even if my heart is still broken in places. I know someday I'll look back at this and see it as the moment I finally took control of my life. I won't forget what Emily did, but I will use it as a lesson. A reminder that I am stronger than I thought, and that I will come out the other side better, wiser, and ready to love again, this time with my eyes wide open.